What do you do when someone you care about just stops caring about you? That moment, that heavy, silent shift. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. A slow fade, fewer messages, colder replies, a growing distance you feel but can't quite explain. And you sit with it, trying to figure out if it's all in your head or if something real has changed. You think about what you said, what you could have done differently. You replay conversations, moments, gestures. You start blaming yourself, wondering why someone who once made space for you now makes excuses. That feeling right there, that confusion, that ache, that heaviness, it's something we've all known. And it's one of the hardest things to face. So what do we do with it? How do we stop feeling like we're stuck in a one-sided bond that keeps draining us? Because let's be honest, it hurts when the connection starts to fade, especially when you've given so much of yourself to it. But staying emotionally hooked to someone who's already detached, that hurts even more. And we get it. It's not easy to just switch off your feelings. That's not how it works. But what we're going to walk through together in this video is something more real, more human. We're not here to give you cold advice that tells you to just move on or get over it. We're here to guide you through what it actually looks like to emotionally detach in a way that helps you heal, not harden. Throughout this video, we'll share some mindset shifts, yes, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how to protect your peace without losing your heart. We've lived through these moments. We've been in your shoes. And maybe some of what we'll say today will put words to things you've felt but never really knew how to express. If you're new here, or if you've been around for a bit, take a second to like this video. It helps more people find it. Drop a comment if something resonates. And if you're ready to go deeper with us, make sure to subscribe. There's more coming and you don't want to miss it. Let's start. Let's be honest, this hurts. Losing someone emotionally doesn't always come with a big moment. Sometimes it creeps in slowly. A little less attention. A delayed reply. You start feeling like something's off, but you don't want to believe it. So you convince yourself they're just busy. You tell yourself not to overthink, but deep down, you already feel it, the distance. And that's what makes it worse. When you know it's happening, but you still hope they'll come back to who they used to be. That version of them you felt safe with, the one that made you feel seen. We don't talk enough about this part, the confusion, that in between where the connection isn't what it was, but it's not fully broken either. It's quiet, draining, and it makes you question yourself more than it makes you question them. You start wondering if you're too much, if you care too hard, if you're being dramatic. But here's the truth, you're not. You're just someone who gave their heart to someone who stopped handling it with care. Maybe you've been there, waiting for a message that never comes, rewriting your last reply, trying to make sure you didn't say anything wrong, checking their activity online but pretending not to care, all while telling your friends, "I'm fine, it's probably nothing." But it's not nothing, it's real, and it hurts, and we need to stop pretending it doesn't. There's no shame in missing someone, even someone who hurt you. There's no weakness in wanting to fix something that once made you happy. But there comes a point when we have to ask better questions. Instead of wondering why they pulled away, ask yourself why you're still giving them so much space in your head. Why their silence still speaks louder than your own needs. Why their absence still controls your mood. We've all done it. Held on to people longer than we should have. Not because we didn't see the truth, but because we weren't ready to accept it. We weren't ready to admit that maybe they were only meant to be part of our story, not the whole book. I remember being in that exact spot. I was close to someone for years. We shared everything. It wasn't romantic, but it was deep. They knew things about me no one else did. And slowly, they started pulling away. I told myself they were just overwhelmed, that they'd come back around. I gave them time, space, grace. But all I got in return was silence. Eventually, I had to stop asking why they left and start asking why I kept holding on to someone who already let go. This isn't about blame. It's about clarity. About understanding that people are allowed to leave and we're allowed to stop waiting for them. You don't have to keep the door open for someone who's already walked out. You don't have to shrink yourself to keep someone close. And you definitely don't have to keep begging for energy that should have been given freely. Let's say it plainly. You're allowed to feel sad. You're allowed to feel confused, angry, even embarrassed. But you're also allowed to choose peace. And sometimes peace looks like saying enough. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in self-respect. Saying, I deserve more than this, and actually believing it. It's not easy. It takes time to untangle your heart from someone else's presence. But the first step is honesty. Telling yourself the truth you've been avoiding. They changed. Or maybe they never gave you what you truly needed. Either way, holding on won't fix it. It just keeps you stuck in a loop that drains you more than it builds you. And let's be clear, you don't need their apology to heal. You don't need their closure to move on. What you need is to come back to yourself. The parts of you that you've put on hold. The dreams you stopped chasing while waiting for them to notice you again. That version of you that started fading just to keep the connection alive. You owe it to yourself to bring that version back. If this is speaking to you, take a second right now, like this video, comment below with something you felt but never said out loud. There's someone else watching who needs to hear they're not alone. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who's going through the same thing. This isn't just about heartbreak. It's about healing. Together, we're just getting started. Let's keep going. Letting go doesn't always come with a grand goodbye. Sometimes it's not about deleting every photo or sending that long final message. Sometimes it's just a quiet shift. The day you stop checking if they've watched your story. The night you don't scroll back to your favorite old messages. That morning when you feel the urge to reach out but you don't. And not because you're holding back, but because you finally know you don't need to anymore. This part is important. You can care about someone and still decide to move forward without them. You don't have to build hate to build distance. That's where a lot of us get stuck. We think detachment means cutting them off emotionally, acting cold, pretending we never cared. But that's not what this is about. We're not asking you to erase the memories. We're helping you reclaim the energy you've been pouring into someone who no longer pours back. The truth is, you can still wish them well and want better for yourself. You can hold love in your heart without needing to hold on. The problem starts when love becomes a leash. When your happiness depends on their validation. That's not love anymore, that's survival. And no one should have to beg to feel seen. Not in a relationship, not in a friendship, not anywhere. We need to change the story we tell ourselves about what it means to let go. Because many of us were taught that real love fights until the very end. But what if the real fight is choosing peace when the connection has already died? What if the strength isn't in holding tighter, but in loosening the grip gently so we can breathe again? We've seen this happen up close. One of us had a close friend who meant everything for years. They talked every day, supported each other through everything. Until slowly, the replies got shorter. The interest faded. And eventually, that friend only reached out when they needed something. It took a while to see it clearly. There were no arguments, no betrayal, just a slow, vanishing act. And that made it harder because you're left grieving someone who's technically still around, but not in the same way. What helped in that moment wasn't anger. It wasn't cutting them off. It was accepting that the version of the friendship that once existed didn't anymore. And that was okay. The chapter ended, even if there was no dramatic final page. When you start seeing detachment not as a reaction, but as a decision, everything shifts. It becomes less about what they did or didn't do, and more about what you're choosing to stop allowing. You stop chasing answers. You stop waiting for them to show up the way you hoped they would. Because you realize you've already shown up for yourself in a way they couldn't. This is the kind of emotional maturity that brings freedom. You stop asking for their attention and start giving it to yourself. Not in a loud, performative way, but quietly, calmly. You wake up and take care of your own energy first. You go through your day without waiting for their name to pop up on your screen. And when the memory of them floats back in, you don't push it away. You just let it pass through like wind through an open window. No anger, no need for closure, just space. That's what real detachment looks like. Some of you may feel conflicted right now. You might be thinking, but I still care about them. How can I just move on? And here's what we want to say. You don't need to stop caring. You just need to stop needing. You can carry the good moments, the lessons, even the love. But you don't have to carry the weight of unmet expectations. That's the difference. Letting go isn't erasing someone, it's releasing the hope that they'll become who you wanted them to be. It's accepting them as they are, and accepting that it might not be enough. And that doesn't make you bitter, it makes you honest. If this is speaking to you, let us know. Drop a comment. Tell us what part hit the hardest. Like the video, share it with someone who's holding on to something they're afraid to release. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. We're building a space here where hard feelings don't have to be faced alone. You're not here by accident. If you've made it this far, maybe it's because part of you is already ready to let go. Not of the love, but of the pain tied to it. So let's keep walking. This next part, it's where things really start to shift. A lot of the time, the hardest part isn't letting go of the person. It's letting go of the story we built around them, the version of them we created in our head, the one we held on to, defended, and kept hoping would eventually show up. We're not always attached to reality, we're attached to the idea of what could have been. And that right there is what keeps us stuck. You might still be telling yourself that if you had said things differently, they would have stayed. That if you were more patient, more fun, more available, they would have seen your worth. But the truth? You're not replaying what really happened. You're editing it in your mind to keep the fantasy alive. And that fantasy is what's hurting you more than anything else. We've all been there. You think about how good it was in the beginning, how they made you feel seen, special, chosen. But look closely. Was that feeling coming from them, or from what you believed about them? Because what we often fall for is how someone made us feel about ourselves. The moment that shifts, we start chasing a ghost. Not the person in front of us, but the memory we can't seem to let go of. There was a time when one of us stayed in a situationship way too long. Nothing was ever official. The connection was mostly in the late-night texts and vague compliments. But somehow, it felt deep. It felt like there could be something if the timing was better. That hope became the story. And even when the signs were clear, they weren't showing up, they weren't consistent. We clung to that version we had created in our mind. Because sometimes, potential feels safer than reality. But that illusion, it'll trap you. It'll make you wait for someone who's never really been there in the first place. We're not saying it's your fault. It's human nature to fill in the gaps. We want meaning, we crave connection. When something feels good, we hold on tight. And when it changes, we assume we did something wrong. But often, the story we're replaying has nothing to do with the present. It's just the highlight reel we've built to justify staying emotionally invested in someone who's already gone. What stories are you holding on to right now? What are you telling yourself to keep the attachment alive? That they still care, deep down? That they're just scared? That one day they'll realize what they lost and come back better? If you're honest, how much of that is based on facts, and how much of it is just hope stretched too far? Letting go doesn't always start with action. Sometimes it starts with rewriting the script. The mental loop that keeps saying, maybe it wasn't that bad, or they didn't mean to hurt me. But if the story you're telling yourself only brings pain and confusion, then maybe it's time to question it. Not with anger, just with clarity. Think about it like this. If a movie made you feel anxious every time you watched it, if it made you cry, doubt yourself, or lose sleep, you'd probably stop hitting play. So why do we keep hitting play on the same mental movie, expecting it to feel different this time? Why keep feeding a narrative that only holds you hostage? Here's something we forget. Just because a connection felt real doesn't mean it was healthy. Just because someone once made you feel special doesn't mean they were meant to stay. And just because you saw a version of them that was kind, loving, and present doesn't mean that version still exists, or ever did, fully. Maybe it was just one side. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe it was only enough to hook you, but not enough to hold you. We know this is tough to admit, because it means letting go not just of the person, but of the dream, the what-ifs, the almosts. But when you do, something shifts. You start seeing things more clearly. You stop justifying mixed signals. You stop shrinking to fit into the space they're willing to give you. And most importantly, you come back to yourself. That's where detachment really starts. Not with blocking someone, not with deleting pictures, but with changing the story. The one in your mind that keeps rewriting the past, keeps romanticizing the pain, keeps making excuses for why they didn't choose you the way you chose them. And if you're still with us right now, it means you're ready to shift something. You're not here to keep replaying the same cycle. You're here to take your peace back. So if this part hit home, like the video, drop a comment. What's the story you've been holding on to that no longer serves you? And if you haven't already, subscribe and share this with someone who might need a little help seeing things clearly. This work isn't easy, but you're not alone. We're doing it with you. And in the next part, we're going to talk about one of the biggest reasons emotional pain sticks around. It's not just about what happened, it's about what we think we should be able to control. And letting go of that, that's where the real healing starts. Here's the part that hurts the most to accept, but changes everything when you do. You can't control how someone feels about you. You can't force connection, no matter how much you love them, how patient you are, or how hard you try to keep things together. And when someone starts to pull away, holding on tighter doesn't bring them back. It usually just pushes them further. Let's be real. A lot of us have stayed in situations way past their expiration date, not because we didn't know it was ending, but because we didn't want to accept it. So we tried harder. We became more available. We made excuses for their distance. We hoped our consistency would make up for their silence. And that cycle? It's exhausting. Not just emotionally, but mentally and even physically. You wake up thinking about what to say. You go to sleep replaying what you said. You spend the day walking on eggshells, trying to be exactly what they might need, forgetting what you need in the process. We've seen it happen. We've lived it too. One of us was once in a relationship that felt like a one-person job. Every time things started slipping, there was this rush to fix it. Book the trip, plan the date, send the message, over-communicate. But nothing worked. No matter how thoughtful or intentional the effort was, it was never enough to bring back the connection that used to be effortless. Because the truth was, the other person had already checked out. And deep down, that truth was felt. But denial is loud when you don't want to lose someone. We get stuck believing that if we just explain ourselves better, if we say the right thing, if we show how much we care, they'll finally get it. But love doesn't work that way. You can't convince someone to care. You can't negotiate your way into someone's heart. And every time you try, you hand over more of your power to someone who's no longer holding your heart with care. Control is tricky because it gives us the illusion that we're doing something productive. It makes us feel like we're not just watching things fall apart, but the truth is, the more you try to control the outcome, the more you end up losing yourself in the process. You lose your boundaries, you lose your clarity, and worst of all, you lose your peace. So here's what we've learned, and what we hope sticks with you. Stop trying to earn love from someone who's made you feel like you're too much to deal with. Stop asking for attention like it's a favor. If they're not choosing you freely, then you shouldn't have to chase their validation. You deserve more than someone who treats your presence like an option. Giving up the need to be chosen is not about giving up on love. It's about choosing yourself. It's about stepping back from a situation that's draining and finally realizing, I've done my part. I showed up, I cared, I tried, and now I release it. That moment isn't weakness, it's strength. Quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to scream or prove anything. The kind that simply says, I matter too. You might not get closure. And maybe that's the hardest part. You might never hear them admit what went wrong. They might never explain why they drifted, why they hurt you, why they stopped trying. But here's what we found. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. From the day you decide their silence doesn't get to speak louder than your worth anymore. From the day you stop waiting for their validation and start building your own peace. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring without letting it consume you. It's about saying, yes, this hurt, but I still choose to heal. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you finally accept that you can't change them. And that freedom opens the door to something better. Not immediately, maybe, but eventually. Because once you stop investing in someone who's emotionally unavailable, you start making room for something real. Someone who meets you with the same energy. Someone who doesn't make you question your place in their life. If this hit home, we want you to pause and breathe. You don't have to figure it all out today. But you can decide to stop fighting for someone who stopped showing up. If you're feeling this, like the video, drop a comment and let us know what you're letting go of. Maybe it's not a person. It might just be the need to be in control. Share this with someone who needs to hear it too. And don't forget to subscribe. We've got more coming, and we're building this space for people just like you. People who are learning to let go, not because they stopped loving, but because they started loving themselves enough to stop begging. Keep going. You're doing better than you think. And in the next part, we're going to talk about what to focus on when everything feels out of your hands. Because not everything is. Some things are within your control, and that's where the real power is. Let's shift the focus now. Up to this point, we've talked a lot about them, their distance, their choices, the connection that faded. But here's where it changes. This part is no longer about them, it's about you. Because even though you can't control how someone feels, or if they'll come back, you still have the most important power. The power to choose how you respond, and that changes everything. So many of us stay stuck, not because we're weak, but because we're waiting. Waiting for a text, a call, an apology. Something that tells us it mattered, that we mattered. But healing doesn't have to wait for their reaction. And it shouldn't. You don't need them to come back to feel better. You don't need their permission to move forward. That's where your control begins. When you stop waiting for someone else to do the thing you can already do for yourself. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. This doesn't mean you pretend it didn't affect you. It means you stop tying your peace to someone who's no longer contributing to your growth. It means you stop pressing pause on your life while hoping they'll press play again. You're allowed to grieve the loss and keep going. You're allowed to miss them and create new routines that aren't built around their presence. One of us had a moment like this, not dramatic, but real. After months of chasing clarity from someone who never really gave it, there came a random Tuesday morning. No big event, no new heartbreak, just a quiet realization. This person was never going to meet us halfway. And right then, instead of spiraling, we decided to stop checking the phone. We deleted the thread, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because every message we reread was dragging us back into a story that wasn't evolving. That small choice, it felt like breathing again. You don't need to flip your whole life upside down in a day, but you can make small shifts that bring your power back. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend who's always there, but you've been too emotionally drained to respond to. Maybe it's signing up for that class you kept postponing, or waking up 10 minutes earlier just to sit with your own thoughts before the noise starts. These might seem like little things, but when you've spent weeks or months pouring all your energy into someone else, giving that same energy back to yourself is a big deal. Start choosing people who choose you back. Fill your space with voices that remind you of who you are, not who you were trying to be for someone else. And most importantly, stop mistaking chaos for passion. Stop confusing inconsistency with mystery. The kind of love that lasts isn't the one that keeps you guessing. It's the one that shows up. Again and again, not just when it's convenient, not just when they feel guilty, but consistently. That's what you deserve. And that's what you start attracting when you operate from your worth. Let's talk about boundaries for a second, because hope is beautiful, but sometimes it becomes a trap. We convince ourselves that staying open is the loving thing to do, that maybe if we're patient they'll come around. But here's the truth. We can hope and still set limits. You can love someone from a distance. You can miss them and still block the door. Boundaries aren't punishments, they're clarity. They say, I value myself enough to not keep hurting just because I care. That's where real self-respect begins, and when you feel the urge to break your own boundary, because it'll happen, pause. Ask yourself, will this action bring me peace or just delay my healing? Most of the time, you'll know the answer right away. You just have to trust it. If you've been watching this far, maybe you needed to hear this part the most. Maybe you've been doing everything right except for one thing, waiting for their behavior to change before you let yourself move on. And that's okay. We've been there, but this can be the turning point. You don't need to wait anymore. You've already done enough. You've already cared enough. Now it's time to care about yourself with that same intensity. So here's what we want you to do. If something in this resonated with you, like the video, drop a comment. Tell us one thing you're choosing to take back control of. Share this with someone who's stuck in that same cycle of waiting and hurting. And make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet, because this journey isn't done. In the next part, we're going even deeper. We'll talk about how to accept the loss without letting it define you. Because acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about finally stepping into the freedom that comes with saying, this happened, and I'm still okay. You've got this. Let's keep going. After the detachment begins, something unexpected shows up. Silence. Not just the silence from them, but the silence around you. The kind that creeps into your mornings, your evenings, your late nights when you would have usually reached for your phone. It's uncomfortable. It feels too quiet. And the first instinct, you want to fill it, you want to break it. You think, maybe I'll just check in. Maybe I'll scroll a bit. Maybe they posted something that gives me a sign. We all do it. The mind starts craving what it was used to, even if it wasn't good for us. But this part, the silence, it's not your enemy. It's the moment your healing starts for real. Not in the loud, dramatic movie scene kind of way, but slowly, quietly. That silence you feel, it's not emptiness, it's space. Space being cleared. And we don't like that feeling because we confuse stillness with loneliness. But the truth is you're not empty. You're just used to noise. And right now, your system is adjusting to peace that hasn't fully settled in yet. A lot of people quit healing here, right at this point. They feel the silence and run back to what's familiar. Not because it's right, but because it's loud. Because it fills the gap. We're not here to judge you if you've done that. We've been there too. One of us went through a period where the silence after cutting contact with someone felt unbearable. Not because there was anything to say, but because the absence felt heavier than expected. And in that silence, there was this strong urge to reach out, just to feel something again. Anything. But when we gave it a few more days, something started to shift. The silence stopped feeling like a void and started feeling like peace. This is where the real transformation happens. Not when you're posting about how unbothered you are. Not when you're saying, "I'm done," out loud. But when you sit with the quiet and let it reshape you. When you face the stillness without trying to distract yourself. That's when things begin to heal. Because in that quiet, you finally hear yourself again. This is where you'll notice the voice that got drowned out in all the noise of trying to keep someone. Your own voice, the one that says, "I deserve better. I was hurting. I didn't feel seen." And maybe for the first time you'll believe it. That belief doesn't always come with power at first. Sometimes it comes with sadness, with grief. But don't mistake that feeling for weakness. It's just part of the release. A good example is when you finally clean out a room you've avoided for months. You throw away old things, pack up dusty memories, sit down in the middle of it all. And it feels strange at first, like something's missing. But what's missing is the clutter. What's left is space. That's exactly what happens when you emotionally detach. You clear space. And yes, it might echo at first, but soon enough, new energy, new peace, new presence starts to fill it. So if you're in that phase where the silence feels louder than ever, breathe. Don't run. Don't rush to replace it. Let it teach you. Let it slow you down. Let it reset you. You've been carrying so much weight, emotions, unanswered questions, what ifs, guilt, blame. You've earned this pause. And no, it won't feel amazing every single day. Some mornings you'll wake up and feel a little hollow. Some nights, the urge to check their page will come back. But every time you choose yourself in those moments, you get stronger, bit by bit. You're not broken for missing them. You're not weak for wanting to hear from them. But you are growing when you choose not to act on those feelings. When you sit in the silence and let the discomfort pass through without chasing what left. And if no one's told you this yet, healing doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like nothing, like walking in a fog, like floating. But that's okay. You're not supposed to feel powerful all the time. You're not supposed to feel clear every second. What matters is that you're not running anymore. You're facing it. And that's rare. That's powerful. If this part of the video speaks to you, hit the like button. Not for us. For yourself. For showing up today. Drop a comment and tell us how you're dealing with the silence. Let someone else in the comments see that they're not alone. And if you haven't already, subscribe. There's more ahead, and trust us, you'll want to be here for the next part. Because after the silence comes the shift, the part where you stop waiting for things to go back to how they were and start accepting them for what they are. That's where we're headed next. And that's where the real peace begins. Stay with us. Let's take a step back for a second. You've been sitting with the pain, the silence, the letting go. It's heavy, we know. But now it's time to zoom out, to stop looking at this one moment as if it defines your whole story, because it doesn't. This person, this heartbreak, this chapter, it's not the end, it's not even the middle. It's just one part of your life. And believe it or not, you're already outgrowing it. Right now, the pain might feel sharp, like it's sitting in your chest every time you breathe. It might feel like you're carrying the weight of something unfinished. But take a second and ask yourself, 5 years from now, will it still hurt? Like this? Will you still be wondering why they didn't care enough? Or will you be living a completely different life, with new people, new energy, and a deeper understanding of who you are? You've made it through tough moments before. Maybe ones you thought would break you, maybe heartbreaks, betrayals, or seasons where you didn't even recognize yourself. But here you are, still standing, still growing, still learning. That means something. That means you're resilient, even if you don't feel it right now. And that strength isn't something this person gave you. It's something you found because of what happened. We know it's easy to let a single relationship take over your whole identity. When the connection is deep, everything else fades. You start to forget who you were before them. You start living in their shadow, tying your worth to their approval. But who were you before this? What did you love before this relationship started to shape your days? What part of you went quiet to keep the peace? And what version of you is now asking to come back? There's something powerful about realizing you're bigger than this pain, that even when it hurts, even when the emotions show up uninvited, they don't get to rewrite your worth. You are not defined by how someone treated you. You are not small because they stopped choosing you, and you are not broken because you're still healing. We remember a time when one of us thought a heartbreak would be the end of everything. It hit hard, right in the middle of life feeling stable. And when it crumbled, so did everything around it. Sleep, focus, confidence. It felt like the world had lost color. But 6 months later, that pain wasn't front and center anymore. A year later, that same heartbreak felt like a distant memory. And what replaced it wasn't someone new. It was clarity. It was strength. It was the ability to love again without giving away all the parts of ourselves. The truth is, time doesn't always fix everything, but it does give perspective. And when you zoom out, you start to see this situation for what it really is, not a punishment, not proof that you're unworthy, but a redirection. A moment that's showing you what you no longer need to chase, and who you no longer need to become to be loved. Ask yourself, when this chapter ends, who do you want to be? Someone who shrunk to keep someone else comfortable, or someone who stood tall, even through the sadness, and chose growth? Because that's what this is. Growth, not perfection, not getting it all right. Just slowly becoming more of yourself again. Emotional detachment isn't about shutting off your feelings. It's not about pretending it didn't matter. It's about freeing yourself from the idea that your value depends on someone else's ability to see it. It's about walking away not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring more about your peace. That's freedom. That's healing. And that's where you're headed, even if the steps feel small right now. If you're still watching, we want you to take a second and breathe. You're not behind. You're not stuck. You're exactly where you need to be to begin again. Like this video if something inside of you just clicked. Leave a comment. We want to hear what part of this journey you're in right now. And if you haven't already, subscribe and share this with someone who's navigating their own healing. You never know who needs this reminder today. We're proud of you. Truly, because staying in the pain is easy. But choosing to heal, that takes courage, and you've already taken that step. Let's finish this strong. One more chapter, the most important one, acceptance. See you there. Let's end this with something honest. You don't have to have it all figured out tonight. You don't have to stop caring overnight. That's not how healing works. It's not about pretending nothing happened or forcing yourself to forget someone who once mattered. It's about taking back the space you've been giving to someone who's no longer part of your life, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You're allowed to keep the memories. Not all of them are painful. Some were real, and they taught you things you wouldn't have learned any other way. But keeping the memory doesn't mean keeping the attachment. You can still think of them without needing them. You can miss them and still move forward. What matters is that you stop letting someone who left or someone who's emotionally unavailable continue to shape your self-worth. We've all been there, caught between what was and what we hoped it would become. But at some point, we need to stop hoping they'll come back and start hoping we'll come back to ourselves. That's the real shift. Not revenge, not bitterness, just peace. Peace with the fact that not everyone we love is meant to stay, and that's okay. There's someone watching this right now, quietly hurting. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone reading the comments looking for a sign that they're not the only one going through it. If this video spoke to you, even just a little, take a second to like it. Not for the algorithm, but for yourself, as a small reminder that you're showing up, that you're choosing growth. Drop a comment. Tell us where you're at in this process. Share one thing that's helped you detach or one moment that taught you your own strength. And if you haven't already, subscribe. We're not just building a channel here, we're building a space where healing feels less lonely, where it's okay to not be okay, and where moving on doesn't feel like the end. It feels like the beginning of something better. Your story might help someone else take their first step, so don't be afraid to speak up. You never know who needs to hear your truth. Let's keep healing together.